Welcome to the UnToxic Boss. I am your host, Jennine K. Brown, and so happy to be here with you all today. We're talking about the calm in the corporate storm, civility at work. So I was on this webinar this morning, and it was women in business, and we had some speakers, and they were talking about a particular business related topic, and I wrote something in the comment about the topic. I thought they did a great job. It wasn't criticism. I wrote in the topic, I wrote in the comments that it appeared based on the way they positioned their comments and their suggestions to us that it's either all of this or nothing. So I just shared my perspective based on how I heard the information. Someone immediately responded, a woman I don't know, and I didn't hear it that way. She was very that I didn't hear it like that, and no way in just a whole bunch of words. I can't even remember what she said. I should have took a screenshot. And I thought, why is she clapping back? I could not even understand why the tone was, it felt very aggressive in her response. And I responded to her again, and I said, hey, that's how I heard it. I was talking about myself, and you don't have to disagree with me, right? Like, she came for me, and then she gave me a little heart emoji after that. And I feel like we've gotten into this society where we take people interact on social media, like we are so accustomed to responding with a dissented, like an opposite view, right? So I'm stumbling over my words here, but I feel like people are always on the defensive and reacting to what someone says, right, with an opposing viewpoint, that we take it everywhere. And so civility at work is a really important topic to me. I have an amazing guest here who's an author and a professional in this space, and he works with companies. And he and I had some really good conversations last year in Phoenix about civility and psychological safety. He is my brother in this work out here trying to help these companies. And so I want all of you to welcome my friend, my professional buddy, my business buddy to this conversation, Dr. Will Moreland. Welcome, Dr. Will.
Jennine, thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this extended conversation that we started in Phoenix. And so let's help a lot of people today.
Dr. Will, I was raised by my grandmother too. And it's interesting how, even as an adult, feeling like I'm so far removed from that, but all of those things that she taught me through sayings like treat others the way you want to be treated. And she used to actually take ours a little bit further for my brothers and I. It's like, treat people better than you would want them to treat you. Sowing seeds of whatever you want is going to come back to you in double measure. And so I've always felt that way as well. But let's get into our topic. Let's talk a little bit about civility. In all seriousness, I think this is so important because when I travel, I'll be honest with you, the more I travel, the more I fall in love with humanity. It's actually when I am at home more or working in Atlanta at the office more, and I'm on social media where I feel this, like, humanity is suffering kind of thing. I think my actual interactions with people have always been very positive for the most part. And so when we look at the definition that the dictionary has of civility, it says that it is the act of showing regard for others by being polite. So my question to you is, have humans forgotten how to be polite while humaning? And then also share, what is your definition of workplace civility and why it's increasingly vital for today's corporate environment?
When we talk about civility, my simple definition goes back to the golden rule. But to expand that, it's just simply to be respectful, to be kind, and to be humane. And when we look at the changing landscape of our workplaces, it requires us to be respectful. It requires us to be kind. It requires us to be humane. And to your point of traveling outside of America and just traveling even outside of your own state inside of America, I think about life like this algorithm, right? You're going to get more of what you search for. So if you think about us being on social media, when you look at your timeline is a reflection of who you are, because it's only going to give you what you've been clicking on. And so it's interesting to me when I look at people and they're on social media and they say, man, social media is this, is that. I look at my timeline, I see Jennine Brown traveling all around the world doing amazing stuff. I see other of my colleagues do it, because that's what I'm clicking on, right? I'm not clicking on who shot John and all that type of stuff. I'm not clicking on you shouldn't like this person, you shouldn't like that person and all that, who shot John, and are you on this side or that side? And my travels, as I said earlier, being able to live outside the United States and live in 5 different countries, what I found out about humanity, I found out I fell in love with humanity as well. And I also realized that we have so much more in common than we have in differences. But I think the major issue that we're having is we're not talking. And when you don't talk, you're left with assumptions. And I'll share this little story. I remember I was going to Dubai, and I was excited to go to Dubai. But just before I got to Dubai, I watched a particular news channel, and they had me so scared to go to Dubai. They're like, oh man, when you get over there, this. So I get to Dubai and I have all these assumptions. And so I never forget, I'm sitting in this coffee shop and I'm looking at these individuals from Dubai. They have on their Muslim garb. And I'm like, in my mind, making up all these things, making up all these stories. And then I said, Will, just go talk to them. Just go talk to them. And so I got up, I mustered the courage to go talk to them. And we ended up having a 2-hour conversation. I'm asking them about their garb. I'm asking them about their lifestyle here in Dubai. And what that did for me was it allowed me to leave that conversation with truth rather than assumptions. And it was one of the most powerful conversations that I'd ever had. And I noticed in my own life, I had did that a lot. Instead of just going and ask someone something, I just made up assumptions, or I just took someone else's experience and ran with it. And so I think the major issue that we're having is we're just not talking. We're just not talking and conversating with each other.
I agree with you. We don't spend enough time together. So I've heard, interestingly enough, Black people clap back to white people and say, how many Black friends do you have? And I'm like, how many white friends do you have? So this kind of challenging about who's in our circle is, we got to look in the mirror first. It's a two-way thing. And you're right. I know here in the United States, for the most part, California, I always say, is a little bit different than the rest of the world. I mean it in a positive way. We, for the most part, live in these homogeneous communities, and we're friends with people who are like us. They think like us, practice the same religion. They're either educated. So it's both, not just what we see as in the color of our skin or gender identity. It is also classism, right? This idea that we think that we know other people and people groups, but we don't, and we don't spend time with them. And so it's so easy for us to be pulled into these conversation of discourse based on things that we have absolutely no control over. The race that we were born in, right? I have no control over the fact that I have this beautiful brown skin that I was born in. It's not all of who I am. But when I think about civility, my next question for you is, where do we get these great examples from? Because we have all of what appears to be a lot of incivility in religious groups. The government, definitely not an example of where we can probably get some civility from. We see it on the news, we see it in social media. So what is really happening? And is this discourse, is it sustainable for the human race?
Mahatma Gandhi had this famous quote. He said, be the change that you want to see, or be the change that you want to experience. And I'm so glad you brought that topic up, because I had to do that, look in the mirror myself and ask myself, how diverse was I? How diverse was I? And as I travel around, I tell people, I say, listen, if you're not diverse in your personal life, you're not going to be diverse in your professional life. And so to your point, if we all live on this island, like I go to the same store, I go to the same church, I go to the same post office. So I'm on my island. And me personally, if I'm not intentional about understanding other people's reality, then I get lost in my own reality. Where I particularly live, there's not a homeless problem. But in Phoenix, there is a homeless problem. But I can go months and months without seeing anyone homeless. And so I could, oh no, we don't have a homeless problem here in Phoenix based upon my demographics. And then I just go 10 minutes, 15 minutes down the road, downtown Phoenix, and I'm like, oh, that's right. We do have a homeless problem. And so I think it's the same thing with civility and in the workplace. Asking yourself, that's one of the things I challenge organizations to do is number one, framework. What type of environment do you want to come to? And as an individual, are you creating that environment? So whatever type of environment you want to work in, are you being that person? Are you being nice? Are you being kind? Are you being respectful? Are you being humane to everybody in your workspace?
I think we're cordial. We have niceties, but we don't connect and build relationships. And one of the things that really, I remember when I was starting my career and my mother was like, work someplace that you really can build a family. And I think these are not the words that people use anymore to describe the people that they work with, that they're a family, that you have really deep, meaningful relationships with them. Now, you might not spend every weekend with them and you might only see them in the workday, but what you created is this richness of trust and civility. What do you think is the single most important quality a leader should possess to foster a civil work environment?
This is what I challenge all the leaders that I work with is that you have to have a deep understanding of humanity. And if I can borrow from the American Declaration of Independence that says all men and women are created equal. And so you have to see that. You have to believe that. You have to embody that. And so if you're leading a team of women, a team of men, a team of Caucasians, a team of African Americans, Indians, Hispanics, Latinos, you got to understand that everybody is created equal. We're different, but we're equal. And so I challenge once again, to take a look in the mirror, look at yourself, look how diverse you are in your own personal life, because it's going to be reflective in your professional life. And so I think it starts with every leader having a deep sense of everybody is equal and everybody is human. And when it helps me, people ask me all the time, Dr. Will, I see you all the time. You're with famous people, you're with athletes, and how do you hold it all together? And I always tell them, I never forget that everybody's human. And so what do we know about humans? To human is to err. We can make any mistake. I make mistakes. And there's a proverb that says, love your neighbor as yourself. And so if you have an improper view of yourself, if you don't look at yourself correctly, it's going to be hard to extend that grace and civility to people you work with. One love.